Welcome to the Popcorn Talk Network. For the online broadcast network that features movie discussion, news, and interviews, press 1.
Popcorn Talk. We talk movies.
From the Popcorn Talk Network, the online broadcast network for movie talk, Alicia Malone with Scott Movie Mantz and the Schmoes Know. This is Profiles. In-depth spotlights on the greatest filmmakers and artists in motion picture history.
Hello, Profilers! Boy, does it feel good to say that. We are back. This is going to be a Profiles to remember. This is one for the books. In more ways than one, I would say.
Yes, we've been waiting for this, and it ends up being a bit of a celebration because Mantz is back. And even though he's down a kidney, he still look like a full man.
This episode, we started shooting this episode, I had 2 kidneys, and I'm going to finish it with 1.
You won't be able to tell. No one will be able to tell.
Yeah. But this is our 40th episode. This is a very, very special person that we're spotlighting today.
Yes.
And when we decided to spotlight this amazing, legendary actress, we just looked at each other and said, why didn't we do her sooner? Of course, we were talking about Sigourney Weaver. What is it about Sigourney Weaver that makes her literally a legend?
She is the queen of sci-fi. She's got such an iconic character that she created with Ripley, who's still the strongest, most badass female hero we've seen in action movies. She's also done a lot of great comedy. She's done a lot of drama, and she's just a really intelligent, elegant woman.
Delicate, intelligent, and
she can play ball busters. She can play nice, lovely ladies. She's great.
She's great. She's a trailblazer. She is a game changer because of the way she developed Ripley, the way that character became such a game changer for women, girls in film. Hashtag girls in film.
Yeah.
But to this day, action heroes like even Emily Blunt in Edge of Tomorrow, people were comparing that character to Ripley, especially in the first 2 films, and especially the second one, Aliens.
Exactly.
But she's also an actress, you know, it wasn't just Ripley, it was Diane Fossey from Gorillas in the Mist.
Yep.
And even though by that point in her career, the late 80s, she could have just insisted on playing lead roles. But even if it was a supporting role that was strong and had a lot of depth, she did it. She knocked it out of the park. She stole the movie.
And we love our Roger Ebert quotes here. And he said that the same woman could appear as a science fiction icon and the star of a movie about political torture, talking about Polanski's Maiden, is remarkable. And she's also starred in the highest grossing movie of all time, Avatar. Amazing.
Amazing. And we have not one, not 2, but 3 very special guests, which on their own individually would have been big gets for us here on Profiles.
Definitely.
But leash for us to have them together on this show is
Amazing.
another reason why this Profiles is one for the books. And as far as the way Sigourney Weaver took on the role of Ripley and sort of her take on the reason why Ripley became such a great character, and in terms of women, strong women in film in general, this is what she had to say. It was really interesting. She goes, the main way to have a good woman action hero is to forget that she's a woman. What was great about the Alien movies was that they weren't really about Ripley. They were about something else, and Ripley brought her humanness to it.
Yes, I totally agree, and I can't wait to talk more about those movies as we go along. But right now, should we get into it with our It's a Wonderful Life?
That sounds like a wonderful idea, Alicia Malone.
Roll it.
Hit it.
Susan Alexandra Weaver was born in New York City on October 8, 1949. Her mother, Elizabeth, was an actress, and her father, Sylvester L. Pat Weaver Jr., was a pioneering television executive at NBC. Weaver changed her name to Sigourney in 1963 after the character of Sigourney Howard in F. Scott Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby. She started acting while attending Stanford University, and in 1974 she earned her Master of Fine Arts degree at the Yale University School of Drama. After doing some stage work, Sigourney Weaver made her feature film debut in Woody Allen's 1977 classic Annie Hall. She was on screen for a total of 6 seconds as Alfie's date outside the theater. But just 2 years later, she scored the role that would change her life as Ripley in Ridley Scott's sci-fi masterpiece, Alien. Bigger movies followed, like The Year of Living Dangerously, Ghostbusters, Aliens, Working Girl, and Gorillas in the Mist. Weaver was nominated for 3 Academy Awards, 2 of them in 1 year, for 1988's Working Girl and Gorillas in the Mist. She won Golden Globes for those movies and was nominated 5 other times, in addition to being nominated for 3 Emmys.
Wow.
Wow, it's impressive.
Very impressive.
I mean,
that double Oscar nomination in the same year is amazing.
And she won the Golden Globes for those characters.
Yeah.
So she didn't get the Oscars, but she got 2 Golden Globes the same year. I think it was like the first time like that ever happened for a woman, a Golden Globes. But still, I mean,
She rocks.
huge. She rocks.
Yeah.
So my question for you is first time your first blood for Sigourney Weaver.
I think it was Ghostbusters, because I must have watched Ghostbusters when I was really young.
Mm-hmm.
I remember seeing it quite a few times with my friends, with my family.
Not in a cinema.
Not in a cinema, no. And I didn't actually go to the cinema till later. And it wasn't ever a regular thing when I was young. It was all on VHS and all like with friends at sleepovers. And I loved Ghostbusters, as everyone did.
Sure.
Such likable characters. But I also remember seeing her in The Year of Living Dangerously. I think that was actually at school because it was directed by Peter Weir, also starred Mel Gibson. Aussie. So I think it was part of our curriculum that we had to watch it. Aussie. What about you?
Mine was Alien.
Yeah.
And
Did
shocker.
your parents take you to the
my
cinema?
My parents took me to see Alien in theaters.
Wow.
In 1979. And of course, what I remember the most about that movie is the chest busting scene. But the fact that she was the only survivor.
Yes.
You know, that she was the only one, and it took me a few years later to realize that it was a horror movie in space.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like it was a year after Halloween, and it's basically the same movie, but you know, Mike Myers is
exactly
an alien.
Exactly.
You know?
It's funny. It's similar to the way I saw Spaceballs before Star Wars. Remember, there was a moment in Spaceballs, wasn't there, when the chest buster comes out and like, hello, my baby, hello, my honey, hello, my ragtime girl. And it wasn't until I finally saw Alien when I was a bit older that I was like, oh, that's where it's from. I expected him to come out with a little top hat on.
Everybody loves the Michigan Ride.
But let's get into our Fast Five, shall we?
Yeah,
We've got
coming in
so
at
many
number
good
5 is...
Are you the key master?
Who are you going to call?
Ghostbusters! And by the way, people watching live on YouTube right now, many people's first blood was Ghostbusters. And quite a few people said that Holes was their first Sigourney Weaver movie, which I forgot that she was in.
2003, I think,
yeah,
right?
It makes me feel old.
Oh, jeez. That was their first blood?
Yeah.
Wow.
Woo.
Well, this was June 8th, 1984.
Yep.
Directed by Ivan Reitman, one of 2 Ivan Reitman movies in our Fast Five for Sigourney Weaver. Cost $30 million to make. Box office domestic in 1984, $230 million. It was the second highest grossing movie of 1984 behind 1984.
You know, I'm terrible with dates.
Beverly Hills Cop.
Beverly Hills Cop.
Beverly Hills Cop.
God.
And you have t-shirts for both, don't you?
I've got Beverly Hills Cop too.
Oh, there you go.
But I also have Ghostbusters. And it also was nominated for 2 Oscars, for visual effects and best song. And it's number 28 in the AFI's list of 100 movies, 100 laughs, 100 years, whatever that one is. The top 100 comedies. It's number 28. And this was really seeing Sigourney Weaver in a new light, because we'd seen her in action films, dramas, and this, she gets to show off her comedic side, even though she is kind of the straight person to Bill Murray's character, and he is straight, but he does his straight comedy so well. But she also got to show off a very different side of her, possessed side. Zool.
There is no data, only Zool.
And man, she looked sexy and glamorous. It's just so beautiful in that role.
She got to play 2 roles in this movie.
Yeah.
And you're right, as Dana, she was like the straight person compared to everyone around her, particularly
she was
Murray.
going through some real stuff with the fridge.
And then, boom, when she becomes Zool, like, wow, she was hot. But this movie, you know, I just watched it again, obviously, and it's a movie that I would watch time and time again anyway. It is so funny. It is so original. And it's just brilliant.
And how excited are you that she's going to be appearing in the new Ghostbusters?
It's awesome.
I think that's so great. I'm sure she's not going to be playing the same character, but it'll be a nice little nod to her. Roger Ebert said about this movie, we probably have the same quote here. The movie is an exception to the general rule that big special effects can wreck a comedy. Rarely has a movie this expensive provided so many quotable lines. Why do you think Ghostbusters is so popular and remains so popular?
Partly because of that. Partly because of the theme song. Again, you have this concept that, I mean, the way the movie plays out, they're like the Keystone Cops. You know, the score for the film sounds very much like it came from like a Keystone Cops kind of movie. But, you know, the 4 very dynamic personalities.
Very different personalities.
Very, very different. Yeah. And then you have Sigourney Weaver.
And she holds her own with all those comedy legends.
You know what else? And it hit me just after, because I was spending some time in New York. This is a very New York movie.
Yes.
New York is a character in this film. Like, for example, when they shut down the system at the Ghostbusters headquarters and all the ghosts are released. I love that image of all the ghosts like flying around the skyline, flying around the Empire State Building with that score, that music. It's a very, very cool movie. It holds up exceptionally well. It's fun. You know, the special effects are great.
Yeah, I mean, I think they still look good.
The New York Times, in their review from 1984, said, Miss Weaver looks great and shows herself to be a willing comedian, as well as an excellent foil for Mr. Murray. And the Newsweek, David Anson, said, everyone seems to be working towards the same goal of relaxed insanity. Ghostbusters is a wonderful summer movie.
And now we're going, we should read our things. I've almost forgotten how to do profiles. It's been that long.
It's like riding a bike.
Yeah. Britton Dowers says about Ghostbusters, I love Ghostbusters and would watch it constantly as a young kid. This is my first blood, but I rarely made it past the scene where Sigourney floats on the bed. It would always freak me out and I would have to turn it off. Seems silly now. She turned in such a witty and heartfelt performance in a movie with a ridiculous concept. The movie does not work without her great performance.
Okay.
So now we move on to what I was going to say.
What were you going to say?
Right stuff.
Right stuff. What do you got?
You can guess. Which I couldn't go past the scene.
Is it Get Away From Her, You Bitch?
Yeah.
Mine too. That gets a high five.
It's such a great scene. And not just because of that line which she delivers with such vehemence, but the fact that it is mother against mother. You know, she's taken on this maternal role, protecting Newt, and then she goes up against the alien queen who's trying to protect her babies, her eggs. I think there's so much leading up to that, and to see her in that suit, it's awesome.
When that door opened and you saw her in that thing, and it was a throwback to the beginning of the movie where she put it on, she goes, where do you want this? And he goes, right over there. But it was, I mean, that's James Cameron. James Cameron's screenplay is brilliant, but that scene, everything that you just said is right on the money. And I remember when I saw that movie in theaters in 1986, it was the week I graduated high school. So you were 4?
5.
Wow. But yeah, so I just remember when she said that, everybody in the theater went, yeah. It is still a rousing moment. I watched it on the plane back from New York, and I was just like, wow, this has to be
it all
the right
leads
stuff.
up to that, because up till then she's kind of running away, and this is where she really takes control. So it has to be the right stuff.
Proactive. Well, let's be proactive and take care of some business now.
Oh, yes.
This is very, very important, ladies and gentlemen. Everyone watching and listening to Profiles, please support Malone and Mantz and Profiles by going to iTunes and subscribing to Profiles and rating and reviewing us on iTunes. Those ratings and reviews on iTunes are so important to us. That's actually where we get the best feedback, and it's how we actually stay alive.
Yeah.
Also, go to YouTube.
.com/Popcorn Talk Network.
And make sure you subscribe to that. Share Profiles with all of your film friends. And make sure you have those film friends share it with their film friends. You want to make Profiles go viral.
That's right.
Make sure you go to our Facebook page, which is Profiles with Malone and Mantz. Like our Facebook page. We're at 4,900 likes, just 100 likes away from the magic number 5,000.
Woo!
just about a year after we started this whole thing.
exciting.
That's exciting.
So exciting.
5,000 is a nice round number.
Yeah, it's good.
So help us get there. Go to Profiles with Malone and Mantz on Facebook. Like it. Join in on the fun. You can join in on the brackets and definitely let us know the comments. Let us know what you like about these movies. As you can see, we read them on the air. And definitely follow us on Twitter.
Here we go.
At Alicia Malone.
Yep.
At Movie Mantz. At Alicia Malone. At Movie Mantz.
Pause.
At Alicia Malone. At Movie Mantz is all about the pause.
You didn't get the pause removed.
No, I
Did you?
got the kidney, not the pause.
All right, well, let's go forward to our Fast Five number 4, which is...
All of you wish to go to the ship? Yes, we wish to go to the ship. You see, we work together. Or not at all.
Yeah,
Galaxy
Quest.
This movie is brilliant. I love Galaxy Quest.
I was going to say, Mantz, I bet you love Galaxy Quest.
I love this
Because
movie.
isn't this kind of an unofficial Star Trek film?
It's so unofficial as a Star Trek movie that at a big Star Trek convention in Las Vegas in 2013...
Which you were probably there for.
I was there.
Yeah.
They ranked all of the Star Trek movies from best to worst, and Galaxy Quest showed up as the number 7 best Star Trek movie of all
Really?
time. It's that
That's
much of an
amazing.
impact. Because you know what's great about it? Just the fans
Yes.
save the day.
They know more than the stars. I really like that concept, and I love how meta this movie is.
Totally.
It's very clever. Yeah, a lot of nods to Star Trek, even if you're not a Trekker.
Trekker, yes.
Trekker.
Said the right word.
Then you still get it, like kind of the Kirk foo and all this stuff
yeah,
with the
shirt off.
Like,
Oh my
so
God,
funny.
you get it! You get it!
I get it.
Yes,
A little
she
bit.
gets it!
A little bit. But it's a really funny film.
Baby
It's
steps.
become a cult favorite.
Totally has. And this movie cost $45 million to make. Made $91 million domestic. Not bad. Feel like it should have been a much, much bigger hit. It came out on Christmas Day, 1999. Directed by Dean Parisa. 9 nominations from the Academy of Science Fiction, Fantasy, and Horror. 1 win for Tim Allen. It's fun.
Yep.
It's clever. It's got a big, big heart.
Yeah, it's never give up, never surrender.
I mean, like, you know, when the aliens are when the bad guys are beating up the good aliens, I mean, you feel bad for them.
Yeah.
You really, like, they weren't just like a punching bag that you're supposed to laugh at them. Like, you really felt for them. And again, of course, Sigourney Weaver has the best line of the movie.
Yes.
Where they're supposed to go through that thing, and she looks through, and it's
Yeah.
and she goes, "Well, F that."
Yeah, I know.
But on the
and even that
DVD
device is really funny. 'Cause It's
Yeah.
like every movie, every sci-fi, show will have that kind of thing.
Well, Sigourney Weaver, in terms of the fact that the movie was good but not great in terms of its box office, Sigourney Weaver said, "I don't think DreamWorks knew what it had. We never did an overseas tour, and I never thought that it was one of those movies. I really thought it was one of those movies that you could show all over the world, and anyone who'd ever seen a show like Star Trek would love it."
And I love her character because she's kind of the token female character, a little bit sexy, a little bit of an airhead. She plays that so well, and it is the 180-degree flip side, completely different to Ripley.
It totally
And
is.
that's why she wanted to play it.
And she also loved playing the character so much that when the filming was over, she got to keep the blonde wig.
She kept the wig. I want to give you a quote from George Takei.
Okay. Ooh, oh my God.
Because I know you like him. It says about Galaxy Quest, "I think it's a chillingly realistic documentary. I do believe when we get kidnapped by aliens, it's going to be the genuine, true Star Trek fans who will save the day. I was rolling in the aisles, and Tim Allen had that Shatner-esque swagger down pat, and I roared when the shirt came off, and Sigourney Weaver rolls her eyes and says, 'There goes the shirt again.' How often did we hear that on set?"
Oh my God.
That's cool.
I feel enlightened right now from you reading that quote from George Takei, who played Sulu in Star
present
Trek.
for you.
That is amazing. By Grabthar's Hammer, that is a fantastic movie. Ben Kramer says that Galaxy Quest was my first blood for Sigourney Weaver. Surrounded by a stellar male cast, Sigourney has, as usual, stands out with a strong female character with a sense of humor that adds so much to a fresh and clever parody of Trekkies, that's Trekkers, and other sci-fi fanatics. Hashtag never give up, never surrender. Hashtag film geek. Hashtag profile for life.
The Rhine09 on YouTube says Galaxy Quest is the Citizen Kane of sci-fi movies.
Oh, it's not the first time you're going to hear that analogy during this show.
You're going to never live that down. Christopher James says, I've been watching Galaxy Quest on cable. I'm not sure, but this is probably the hottest Sigourney Weaver has ever looked on screen.
That's one of them.
It's one of the few times, yeah.
Well, we're sort of like moving along at a steady pace with the show, Leash, because we have not one, not two, but three big guests. Our first guest we talked with much earlier.
Yeah.
It's director Ivan Reitman, the director of Ghostbusters, and another film in our Fast Five, which we'll get to right after this. What a pleasure, what an honor, and really, what a fun interview, director Ivan Reitman.
Roll it.
And joining us right now on the phone, we are honored and thrilled to be joined by Ivan Reitman, the director of Ghostbusters and Dave, 2 movies in our top 5. Ivan Reitman, thank you so much for joining us on Profiles. We are talking about the great Sigourney Weaver.
Yes, pleasure to be here.
And she is great, isn't she? I mean, she can do drama, she can do comedy, she can do action. What do you think it is which makes Sigourney Weaver such a talented actress?
Well, she's as smart as they come. I think it starts with the brain. She has great talent. She went to the Yale Drama School, but she's smart. And by the way, most people don't know this, but at Yale, she was known for her comedy. And she worked with a director, now a director and writer named Christopher Durang, and they worked on these extraordinarily funny plays very early in her career. So I didn't know this until I started working with her, but from her very first audition on Ghostbusters, I knew we had our Dana Barrett.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, what was it about that first audition for Ghostbusters? Because up to that point, she had done obviously Alien and Eyewitness. She dabbled in comedy a little bit with Deal of the Century, but I mean, Ghostbusters was a trailblazing, groundbreaking movie. It was so original. What was it about her that made you realize we've got our Dana, we've got our Zool?
Well, she strode into my office to talk about playing Dana Barrett. Almost one of the first things she said was, I read the script, and I really do think that Dana should become a dog. She should really be possessed, and because she was not. And then she proceeded to get on all fours on my coffee table and start howling to the moon. And I said, okay, this lady's up for anything.
Wow.
And, it was a great idea. I remember calling up Harold Ramis, my co-writer on the film, and saying, Sigourney Weaver, the woman from Alien, she just came to my office and talked about being possessed. I think it's kind of a good idea. Let's look at the last act again. And we actually changed the script based on her idea.
Wow. And
that
she
is
did
impressive.
such a good job as well, because she kind of had to be the straight person against Bill Murray. How game was she on set once filming started to really go there with the possession scenes?
Well, she was totally confident. And I thought, if you think of the Ghostbusters as the Marx Brothers, then Sigourney Weaver was Margaret Dumont, this great, classy woman, which is what Sigourney is. Really intelligent, kind of high society, just naturally. And she had the wherewithal to stand up to them, on top of which there's a lovingness to the way she looked at them. She was never bugged by them. She always sort of had, it was never condescending, but there was this confidence in her that made her extremely likable, and also made the Ghostbusters very likable. And the relationship with Bill, when he first comes into her apartment and starts twinkling the piano and points that sort of squeaky thing at her, and she deals with it in the most sort of easy and comfortable way. I just thought it's going to be wonderful, and it turned out to be very wonderful.
Oh yeah.
Well, while you were making Ghostbusters, I mean, I remember when I saw that film, I was 15 years old. I grew up in Philadelphia, and I saw it with a bunch of my friends, and we just were over the moon with that movie. It was just so original, and it holds up so well. Obviously, they're doing a female version of it now. And but while you were making this movie, was there a point when you all looked at each other and went, okay, we've got a hit on our hands, or did you just not know?
No, we were a pretty cocky bunch. We were confident. I've often said that the first time I saw, and it was a day before we started filming, but we were doing some pickup shots, and it was the first time I actually saw all four Ghostbusters in their outfits, in full regalia, just sort of running down Madison Avenue, and there was this shiver that went up my back, and I said, "Wow, there's something here." And
so great.
As a director, I try to play it very, very straight. Made it very naturalistic, even though these extraordinary things were going on. And what happened is people really got sucked into the movie in a really wonderful way. They took all the scary stuff really seriously, and it made the laughs that much bigger.
Well, in between Ghostbusters and Ghostbusters 2, Sigourney Weaver was nominated for 3 Academy Awards. One for Alien, which was the first time an actress was nominated for an action role, and then 2 in the same year for Working Girl and for Gorillas in the Mist. So when you got the band back together for Ghostbusters 2, like had she changed it at all? Was she like more confident as an actress because she had so much more experience and credibility under her belt?
Well, she had already made Alien by the time we made Ghostbuster. I think she had. That's what I remember. And she'd certainly done Year of Living Dangerously, where she was just spectacular.
Yes, definitely.
I didn't really notice a difference. I mean, I thought she was great in both of the films. I think she was playing a mother in the second film, and I think she really got into playing with the twin babies that sort of made up her child. She was very, very comfortable all the time. And I worked with her a third time in the movie Dave. Where I thought she was just fabulous.
Yeah, well, her on Dave, I mean, there wasn't too much softness about her character, at least at first, with that movie. What was it like working with her again and working with that character in particular?
Well, Dave is even though it's humorous, it's a much more serious film, particularly her role, because, she's being cheated on by her husband, the President of the United States. And halfway through the movie, she discovers her husband's actually in a coma, and the man she thought was her husband was this sort of just this nice guy from downtown. And I remember sitting down with the two actors and just talking about what the opportunities were, the reality opportunities in the story. And she was, as usual, very, very smart about her character. My favorite story off of Dave is that, even after we almost finished filming, I was looking at a very early cut of the film, and I realized that it was a little premature for Dave and the First Lady, played by Sigourney, to go back into the White House after they've escaped it, which is sort of in the middle of the movie. And it needed one more scene. And we wrote a scene almost on the spot and ended up shooting it a week later. And it's the scene where they sing Tomorrow, from Annie on the street of Georgetown. And I remember talking to the great late producer, Ray Stark, who was the producer of Annie, trying to negotiate the rights for that song, for them to sing that song. And there we were all set up already. We were ready to go. And but he was very kind about it, and we'll finally let us do it. And it turned out to be this very, very lovely scene. I love the cop. One of the cops was played by Gary Ross, who wrote the script, and I loved him saying, he turned to Dave, he said, "You're pretty good, but you got a lot of work to do."
Yeah, she's not going to cut it, yeah.
Well, Sigourney's had so many fantastic movies, other than the ones that you've worked with her. What are your favorite Sigourney movies, would you say?
Well, I'm prejudiced. I like it. I think she's done wonderfully in everything, but I think there's something about her relationship in Ghostbusters 2. I just happened to see the movie again, and I forgot how loving she is to Bill, who's as usual plays his cantankerous, very, very funny character. And what makes him so lovable actually is the love that she shows towards him, and it makes us love him more. And I just, I've always appreciated her as an actress, but having seen it again some 20 years later,
Yeah.
it just made me love her that much more.
Yeah.
Well, we couldn't love you any more than we do
Thank you.
for taking the time to talk with us on Profiles about your films and about working with Sigourney Weaver. Ivan Reitman, we were just up at the Toronto Film Festival and we saw you and we were going to ask you on the spot, but we didn't want to bombard you while you were at Reitman Square in Toronto.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
But
thank you. Did you visit my restaurant in Montecito up in Toronto?
Yes.
Yeah, we did actually.
We did,
Yes.
yeah.
Oh, good.
That was delicious.
I didn't know that was yours.
I didn't
It's
know
great.
it was yours either. We're learning a lot today on Profiles. Ivan Reitman, thank you
Yes.
again for calling in, and thank you so much. Have an excellent, excellent day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, the first of many high fives today. It's going to be a jam-packed high five for Profiles today. Ivan Reitman, the
He's
director
so nice.
of Ghostbusters. He was
Yep.
so nice. He was so funny. Mm-hmm. I mean, I never would have guessed that Sigourney Weaver had done so much training in comedy
Yeah.
before, because you saw her first as like Ripley. And,
I wouldn't have guessed that they put in the possession stuff because she really wanted to do it.
I mean,
that's crazy.
That's a kind of interview you
like
learn
the
something.
dogs, yeah.
Well, as we know, I mean, Ghostbusters was number 5 on our list, and coming in at number 3 in our Fast Five.
Is.
You know, Dave, it is Dave, isn't it? I can't keep all of this a secret.
Yeah, I know.
Aw,
Dave. This movie, also directed by Ivan Reitman, released May 7th, 1993. Box office $63.3 million domestically. That's actually okay because this is a perfect movie.
Yeah.
It is the Mr. Smith Goes to Washington of the 90s.
That's what I was going to say.
Yes, you
Yeah,
were.
it feels a lot like the Frank Capra movie
Capra.
because it's about, the everyman, the honest guy who gets put in this extraordinary situation, having to replace an elected official. And I love those kind of stories where you've got a character at the center who is just so nice and sweet and good and kind, and he goes up against a corrupt system.
And it's a wonderful movie. It's funny. It's got a big heart. It's a crowd pleaser. It's rousing, and it's just so charming and delightful. It's infectious.
I completely forgot about this movie until you suggested it for our Fast Five, and I rewatched it. I was like, it's great. I forgot about it. And Sigourney Weaver is a great addition to the cast because even though Kevin Kline is front and center, and Kevin's always amazing.
Terrific, yeah.
To have Sigourney Weaver as the first lady, and when you first meet her, she's very upset, very bitter at her husband for all the cheating, and then slowly she softens, and you get to see the real side of her.
You know who was a big fan of this movie?
Bill Clinton.
Bill Clinton! Oh, yes, we're both doing the same research as always. Roger Ebert, also a big fan, said that Kevin Kline and Sigourney Weaver are great at playing characters of considerable intelligence. They bring such particular qualities to their characters that we believe in them every step of the way. It's a wonderful, wonderful movie.
He also said, when I first heard this storyline, I imagined Dave would be completely predictable. I was wrong. The movie is more proof that it isn't what you do, it's how you do it.
It's a great American comedy. And for people listening or watching Profiles right now, if you have not seen Dave, please rent it, watch it, download it, stream
really
it, whatever
easy
it
to
takes.
watch. It's fun.
Yeah, it really
You'll enjoy
is.
it. And this was the third time that they worked together, Sigourney and Ivan, because Ghostbusters
2,
then Dave.
And we got more stories about that later in the show. Jason Smith had this to say about Dave. Sigourney Weaver as First Lady Ellen Mitchell steals the show. The subtle but significant changes she portrays through her character holds the movie together. She's strong, vulnerable, stoic, and good-hearted. A full run of emotions, sometimes with little or no dialogue. An amazing performance and just another reason why we love her. Hashtag Film Geek. Hashtag Profiles. Hashtag Malone and Mantz 2016.
That's great.
Yes.
I love that. Well, the Fletch 93 on YouTube says, I bet they won't talk about Working Girl. Well, you were wrong, because now we get to the others.
And the first movie we're going to talk about in the
Working
others
Girl.
is Working Girl. I know this is a big movie for you.
Yeah, 1988. I love this film. I love Sigourney's character. She's this tough Wall Street woman, Catherine Parker. She's like deliciously evil, Oscar nominated as well.
Yeah.
It's a great film.
It's a great film, and it's a movie that when you look back, 1988, for it to be not just a movie about female empowerment, but one where you have, I mean, that could have been a man as her boss.
Yeah.
And it was a woman.
Yeah.
And she stole the movie, by the way.
Exactly. And I remember watching it when I was young, and it's why I always talk about girls in film, is because you want to see, you know, if you can see it, you can be it. You want to see these empowering characters on screen. And I remember it really spoke to me.
It is a movie that still, to this day, it holds up very well. But when you look back on it, you realize how much of a game changer that was.
Yes.
And another great film with a strong supporting performance, The Ice Storm.
Yes,
1999, Ang Lee. Another film where she co-starred with Kevin Kline. This
Yeah.
one, she played Janie Carver.
It's like the neighborhood... sexy,
yeah, you know,
seductress.
Not a whole lot of fidelity going on in this movie. Very much an early '70s film. Ang Lee, beautiful score in this movie, an amazing ensemble cast
Great
about
cast.
dysfunctional
Elijah
families.
Wood, Joan Allen, yeah,
Tobey Maguire.
Yes.
Yeah, excellent film. And then there's Eyewitness.
Oh yeah.
1981. If you've never seen Eyewitness, I think this might be the first movie she did after Alien.
Mm-hmm.
Lead role. She plays a TV commentator. It's sort of a gripping thriller. It does feel a little more dated than some of the other movies we've been talking about, but it is a strong performance, an early film from Sigourney Weaver. Definitely worth watching again.
Yeah, I haven't seen that movie
Yeah,
in a
good.
long time.
What do you got?
Also, Avatar.
Of course.
2009, when she's the head of the Avatar program. She wants peace with the Na'vi, teaching them English. I mean, it's such a huge hit, and it was such a nice nod to her, you know, Queen of Sci-Fi kind of reign to be in the movie. Plus, she get to work with James Cameron again.
Again.
It was great.
And that's going to happen again and again and again because he's
With
making
the
like
other
3
Avatars,
movies
yeah.
back to back. Now, a movie that I love, I'm very curious to know what you think about this film because it gets very polarized, mixed reviews, but I loved it back in 1992. I love it now. It is Alien 3. Talk to me.
I after the first 2, I just didn't think that it could really hold up. But I do understand there are great moments in it, and I think Sigourney definitely is a standout in the film.
She's great
Yeah.
in Alien 3.
And I do like how her character, Ripley, evolves with every single movie.
Exactly. I think that's
But
what I love about it. But
just lacked the kind of... I think the first Alien was, and the second, they're both so original.
They're so great.
It lacked that originality.
The first 2 Alien movies are brilliant. Absolutely, I completely agree. But what I like about the third movie is how much it's like the first because it's just one alien.
Yeah.
You know, the most unfortunate thing about Alien 3, directed by David Fincher,
Yeah,
who we love. We profiled him, and we talked about this actually on his show. The unfortunate thing with Alien 3 was that it followed Aliens.
Yes,
How do you-
that's the thing.
How do you top that?
I think if it was a standalone, separate film, it would have been a lot better received.
But also, you mentioned before The Year of Living Dangerously, directed
Yes.
by Peter Weir. Excellent film, 1982. Definitely one that's worth watching again. But I also love when she does these sort of cameo supporting performances, like in Cabin in the Woods.
That's what I was going to say.
Yes.
2012, when she played the director. Once again, nice little nod. Whenever you see her in a sci-fi film, I think she also appeared in Paul.
Paul, yeah.
Too. So whenever she does those kind of little cameos, I love. And Cabin in the Woods is one of the most original horror films I've seen.
That's an excellent film.
In the past 10 years.
Not a predictable moment in that film. Not
and
totally.
yeah, particularly with her character and what she does with the facility, you never
Also,
saw that coming.
Don't forget about her voiceover cameo in WALL-E.
Oh, that's right.
You know, she had, you know, if you listen, you can hear her. So, but what I love is that she doesn't, she'll, if it's a good role, if it's something where she can really contribute, despite the size, she'll do it.
Exactly.
And she kills it every time.
And she has so many great roles, which is why on our Profiles with Malone and Mantz Facebook page this week, our profilers focused on the best characters.
Oh.
So it was Diane Fossey versus Diana Barrett from Ghostbusters, then Ripley versus Gwen DeMarco. It got down to Ripley versus Diane Fossey.
Ooh.
Who do you think won?
Gotta be Ripley.
Gotta be Ripley.
Gotta be Ripley.
Ripley, and thanks to Steve Zissou and everyone else at the on our Facebook page who helps to run it.
Yo, Steve.
It's so great that our Facebook page just kind of has a life of its own.
Have a life of its own.
Profilers.
The profilers are the best.
Yes.
They're like our friends.
And a big hi to Ryan B, who's watching live on YouTube for the first time, along with Billy Polahan and Danny B Reviews and lots of tons of Joshua Price, Tyler Myers, lots of familiar names. I love it.
I love it. We love our profilers.
Yes.
We're profilers. You're profilers. The show is as much for you as it is for us. And then, as we move on, getting to number 2 on our Fast 5.
Yes.
That gives us...
Number 2 is...
Just can't imagine not being out with them every day. Seeing their faces, hearing them. I'm hooked.
I had to take that from the trailer because there was no clips available. Gorillas in the Mist.
What a movie. Released September 23rd, 1988. Directed by Michael Apted. 5 Oscar nominations, including music, editing, sound, adapted screenplay. Best Actress nomination for Sigourney Weaver. The same year she was nominated for Supporting Actress for Working Girl. And also nominated for both Golden Globes in those roles that she won for those.
Yep.
Movie cost $12 million to make. Worldwide box office, $61 million. Another, in addition to Ripley, another extremely strong female character, Diane Fossey, primatologist.
Yeah.
Champion.
Interesting story.
Yeah, it really is. When you like watching it again, because I hadn't seen it since '88.
Yeah.
I was like, well, first of all, it holds up.
Yes.
But you just realize just how passionate she was about the mountain gorillas in Rwanda. And they were endangered, and she made a difference.
She made a direct difference and continues to make a difference with her foundation. But that is, it's such a tough story as well, that hours before the producer was supposed to meet Diane Fossey, she was murdered. So crazy. And Sigourney Weaver, I think, really did her justice because you really understood Diane Fossey with this role. And also it sounds like a really tough filming, really tough shoot because they had to hike for hours to get to the gorillas and they could only film with the gorillas for about 1 hour a day. Then not many crew members could go up because they couldn't have too many people around the gorillas. So Sigourney Weaver wore an earpiece for much of it. It just sounds like a really, tough shoot, but it's seamless. And, you know, a funny thing, and I think we spoke about this off camera, that growing up I used to think it was gorillas in the midst.
Yeah, I did too.
And then I realized, oh no, it's in the mist.
It's in the mist.
Not the midst.
And the Washington Post said, at last, Sigourney Weaver found a part cut to her scale. It's a great role for her to pour herself into, and she doesn't skimp. And our man, Roger Ebert, it's impossible to imagine a more appropriate choice for this role.
Well, a few people on YouTube saying that they haven't seen Gorillas in the Mist before. I keep saying that. Gorillas in the Mist before. So, Brian Sudfield said, I've never heard of Gorillas in the Mist. I must be crazy. Joshua Price says, I have issues with the story, but Weaver is undeniably great. Fine. It's a biopic. People saying, the Ryan 09 says, I've never heard of this, and Dave, but it's going on my wall of shame. Lots of people saying they're going to check it out.
Definitely check it out. Billy Polahan, who is watching live. Hi, Billy.
Hi.
Profile for Life. Gorillas in the Mist is one of those movies where you learn about the events that made the film possible, and you become intrigued and inspired by what some people will do to preserve life on this planet.
Yeah.
Weaver gives a very real performance that shows the more dramatic side of her acting ability. A film I watched with my mom, who happens to look like Sigourney Weaver in the 80s. Well, nice. And it's a film that made me appreciate the value of a film and the value of life, as the film's ending is very sad, but also shows we as human beings can really make a difference. I love Ellen Ripley, but my favorite Sigourney Weaver performance and film has to go to this masterpiece, a prolific actress that I and many others look forward to seeing time and time again. Hashtag film geek. Hashtag profile for life.
Yeah, she definitely showed that maternal side, that really sweet side, but also toughness as well with this role.
Well, speaking of toughness,
ooh, yes.
Not too many directors. I got to tell you, this was a career moment, a personal moment.
I agree.
To talk with this director about Sigourney Weaver and about our #1 movie But for you and me to be talking to James Cameron,
Who I feel like should be Sir James Cameron. I think he should be knighted.
and we absolutely are going to do a profile on Cameron.
Oh, for sure.
For sure.
I mean, I had never spoken to him, I don't think. I think I'd spoken to him once in a round table print interview, but to talk to him on the phone for profiles about Sigourney Weaver, about Ripley, is definitely a dream come true.
And this is an amazing interview, so let's get right to it. Let's roll our interview with James Cameron. And right now, joining us on the phone for our profiles on Sigourney Weaver is Oscar-winning director James Cameron. Worked with Sigourney Weaver on 1986's Aliens. James Cameron, you are on profiles with Scott and Alicia.
Hi, Scott. Hi, Alicia. How you doing? Thanks
We're
for
doing
having me
great.
on.
Thank you.
We're doing so good. Thank you so much for sharing your time. I mean, you not only worked with Sigourney on Aliens, but also with Avatar.
Yeah.
Such a great relationship that you guys have on screen, and I'm sure a friendship as well. What do you think it is which makes her such a unique actress?
Well, I mean, I think she has a kind of unique beauty. I mean, I think that if you think about the really interesting actresses out there, like Meryl Streep and Cate Blanchett, they don't look like anybody else. They don't look like fashion models. They have a kind of unique face, and I think Sigourney has that. She has that physical strength, the stature, but she, I think what people get from her is this sort of piercing intelligence. And if you know Sigourney, she's just brilliant as a person. I mean, she's so widely read, fun to talk to, and all that. But I think she just kind of projects this strength, and I don't mean physical strength, although she's been physically strong in some of her roles. It's a kind of strength of character, of will, of wisdom, a strength of the heart, emotionally, and yet she's able to contrast that when she needs to with a vulnerability that lets us into her and makes her human, and I think you add that all up and you get somebody that's pretty unique out there. Yeah.
Well, she is definitely unique, and also unique is Aliens. Came out in 1986, and this is definitely one of those films that in Hollywood history, it is a superior sequel on every level, and this was something that you wrote, from what we understand, on spec. Is that true?
No, not quite. I was hired to write it, but we hadn't officially landed Sigourney yet. So I was writing a script for an actress and built around her character, and also unbeknownst to me, they told me they had an option and she was locked in and everything was cool. They being the other producers on the film that were on Alien, the first film, and then it turned out not to be true. So it was then everybody turned and looked at me and said, "Okay, you got to go get Sigourney." So that was the most terrifying meeting of my life when I drove up. She happened to be in Santa Barbara visiting her mother, and I drove up and met her up there. And I thought, wow, I just spent the last 4 months of my life writing this script, and now I've got to talk her into doing it. And but fortunately, it was a great meeting. She was very warm and welcoming. I think she was cautious. She was cautious about going back and doing a sequel, reprising that character, and I told her that it was basically a kind of a mother-daughter story, and maybe because she just happened to be there visiting her mother at the time, that was on her mind, and so that struck a positive chord. She was very concerned about gun violence because she's very liberal in gun control and all that sort of thing. And I said, no, there's not going to be too much of that. just a little bit.
Just a little bit, and a few flamethrowers as well, for good measure.
So, cut to Pinewood Studios. We're there, about to start shooting the film, and she sort of read the script again a little more carefully, and she says, well, I do actually do a lot of shooting with the machine gun. And I said, come with me. And I got the armorer to get us a 45 Thompson machine gun, and we went out behind Pinewood Studios, and she got to fire it. And all of her liberal gun control stuff went right out the window. She had this huge grin on her face. She said, oh, well, that's kind of fun, isn't it? I said, well, just remember this moment when you're doing the scene where you're shooting up the alien queen's, egg chamber.
Yeah. Well, that's what I love about Aliens is Ripley has a whole nother layer to her that wasn't in Alien. for example, with the machine gun, the first time she shoots it, she gets a shock by the power of it. She has such a great vulnerability and the maternal instinct as well.
Yeah.
Was that
Yeah.
always your plan with this character, to add that layer to her?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, I was very inspired by Ridley's film. I was inspired by Ripley as a character, but I wanted to take her someplace farther. I mean, if you think about her in the first film, she's actually kind of pretty off-putting and bossy and difficult to deal with. But you fall in love with her and you go on that journey with her. I thought, okay, so how do I take her further? And I had actually written a short story years earlier called Mother, that was about the maternal instinct and an alien creature, and I thought, oh man, I've got this.
Yeah.
I'll just do an alien queen, and I'll have the two women protecting their children, and it was all about maternal energy, the mother bear, you know.
Yeah, get away from her, you. Yeah, I love that. It's the best line ever.
Well, you know, we were just doing research for the show. We didn't have to do a lot of research to really zone in on the fact that Ripley is, especially as she was established in your film, she really took female action heroes, to a whole new level. She became a trailblazing, groundbreaking character, and the female action hero by which, to this very day, all other female action heroes, what few of them there are, have become judged. How long into the filmmaking process did you realize that this character was going to have such an impact like that?
Well, I don't think we realized it when we were making it. I don't think we realized it until the film was completed and people started responding. I mean, the moment that I recall, because we never did any test screenings. It wasn't as common back then, and it was considered kind of a medium-sized movie, not a big blockbuster or anything. And so we never test screened it. So we were at the premiere, which was in Westwood here in L.A., and when it got to that line, the one that you just quoted, "Get away from her, you bitch," the audience was practically on its feet.
Oh, it's so great!
And we realized that it worked. You know, it was actually one of my highlights of my career in my mind, because it was the first time I ever got instant positive feedback from an audience that the movie had scored. It was a touchdown.
And then you had great feedback from the Academy as well.
Oh, yeah, sure.
What was it like having Sigourney nominated, being the first actress to have an Oscar nomination for an action movie?
Right. Well, I mean, it's been described variously as the first one for an action movie, the first one for a horror film, depending on how you classify it. I've always thought of it as kind of action horror.
Yeah.
Look, it was a unique moment in history. I felt it was a real victory for the horror, sci-fi, fantasy kind of genre space, because you simply didn't get Academy Award nominations if you did those kinds of films. They were kind of second-class citizens. So it was a victory from a genre perspective, and it was a victory for her as an actress, being taken seriously as a as an action figure, action icon. So we were thrilled. I was disappointed, of course, when she didn't win. All due respect to Marlee Maitland, but I mean, she was trapped, right? So it's not, she wasn't acting as much as Sigourney, firing a machine gun when she's actually, this liberal gun control freak. That's acting.
That definitely is acting. And also, the strength of her performance is her vulnerability and her maternal instincts. How was she working with Carrie Henn, who played Newt? And by the same token, how did she interact with the rest of the cast, particularly Bill Paxton, who is sort of a scene stealer in this movie?
Man.
he is a scene stealer. Well, Sigourney's very professional, and she got along very well with all the other cast members. And I don't remember any off-screen. I don't remember particularly any off-screen interaction with Bill, positive or negative. But I remember with Carrie. She became kind of her surrogate mom on set, and Sigourney kind of adopted Carrie and was very protective of Carrie, wanted to always make sure that not only was she physically safe, but that she was emotionally safe. It was her first film. I think it was actually her first film and her last film, and that she was, that she was being cared for and not overlooked and that sort of thing. And I think that was really helpful for Carrie, that Sigourney was there for her.
Yeah, it's a great relationship. And then, of course, you got to work with Sigourney again on Avatar. How was it a second time around after all that time?
Well, it was great. I mean, because, we'd both gone on and we were successful. We were coming back to it from a a position of strength, and really just from kind of friendship. I mean, the funny thing is, it took me a second to realize that she was actually right for the character I'd written. I didn't sort of write it for her, but then just the light bulb went on one day, and I said, "Oh, Sigourney should play this character." And I think subconsciously I had resisted it because she had done science fiction before, and here was a character on an alien planet, dealing with aliens. Of course, they were good aliens this time around. And I thought, oh man, this is going to feel tired for her. And I thought, don't be stupid. I just kind of slapped myself and said, she's perfect for Grace. And so, I called her up and I said, I've got a character. I think you're going to really like her. And Sigourney just jumped in with both feet. She loved it. We went to Hawaii, and we tromped around in the jungle and in the rainforest there, and we did a lot of kind of sense memory experimentation to sort of figure out how she was going to play her character walking around in the rainforest that was actually just a gray performance capture stage, where she's wearing a black leotard. So I think she likes anything with a challenge to it.
Yeah. And we know you like a challenge too.
Yeah, well, I like challenges too. Absolutely.
Well, listen, I got to be honest with you. We've been doing profiles for more than a year now, and this has been such a very, very special day for us, personally and professionally. Thank you so much for calling in and for talking with us about the great Sigourney Weaver.
And we're going to profile you too as well.
Yes.
It's coming soon.
Okay. All right, well, thanks for that. And yeah, thanks for doing this thing on Sigourney. She's amazing.
All right, thank you so much and have a great day.
Okay, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye. Kind of amazing.
Kind of amazing. That gets a high 10.
High 10.
High 10 for Malone and Mantz on profiles.
I've been watching all the YouTube comments, and some people are like, they should be doing high 10s, and other people saying, I don't think I can handle high 10s. Sorry. That deserves a high 10 because we spoke to Sir James Cameron. We should start a petition because he is amazing.
He is amazing. I mean, we spoke to James Cameron.
I know, crazy.
What? And that's just... the hits just keep on coming.
It's amazing.
That brings us to our number one movie.
Our number one movie, which is kind of a cheat because we're going to talk about two movies. Take it away.
Get away from her, you bitch!
Yes!
Yeah! Aliens, and we're also going to talk Alien, but not Aliens 3.
You can't have one without the other. They're both great. Aliens came out July 18th, 1986, directed by our guest we just spoke with, James Cameron. And Alien, directed by Ridley Scott, came out May 25th, 1979. The tagline on the poster for Alien was, "In space, no one can hear you scream."
It's on my
it's on your t-shirt.
Yep.
The tagline for Aliens, "This time it's war."
I didn't know that.
Oh, that's a good one, isn't it?
But that is exactly the way to describe the two movies because Alien, like you were saying before, is definitely a horror film just set in space. It has all the horror conventions. And that made it something different because it wasn't like a Halloween or a Freddy Krueger. It was in space with an alien. Whereas Aliens is a great action movie. It's non-stop from start to finish, and it has all those great little James Cameron touches in there.
It's also an allegory for Vietnam.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what made it so great, is that the might and the power of these space marines wasn't enough for the aliens who were... the humans were instantly overpowered, and it was disturbing.
It does feel like a war movie.
It absolutely does, and like the main spaceship was shaped like the rifles that they were using. 7 Oscar nominations for Aliens, including score for the late great James Horner, Best Actress for Sigourney Weaver, 2 Oscar wins for sound effects and visual effects. Cost $18 million, which is like peanuts. Box office was $180 million worldwide. Alicia, Aliens is a perfect movie.
Yes.
It's one of the best sequels ever made. It is one of the best sci-fi movies ever made. And it is the Citizen Kane of alien movies. Yes!
There you go.
There you go. Can't let that
go. Everything's a Citizen Kane or something. So then I was going to ask whether you preferred Alien or Aliens, but I guess I have my answer.
Well, I prefer... It's a tough call because
they're both great and very different.
And they're both perfect for completely different reasons. Now, the first one is just so intense and atmospheric.
Slow.
And it's like such a
slow burn, the tension that builds. I love that.
Cinematography, the production design, the fact that you don't really get a good look at the alien until the very end. It's like Jaws in that way.
Yeah.
But then there's Aliens, which it definitely feels like a more action-packed film, but there's still an awful lot of setup and character
a lot
development.
of character.
A lot of character, and that's what I like about it.
And I really love Ripley in Aliens because of all the reasons we were talking to James Cameron about, with the extra layer of vulnerability on top and the maternal. Like, I loved in Alien that she was just one of the crew members. Wasn't a big deal that she was a woman up in space. She was like one of the truck workers alongside them, blue collar worker. And then Aliens, I liked how she was the one that was scared because she had seen the horrors before, and then she also wanted to protect Newt. It's such a complex character, and it's such a shame that it's been so many years since we've been talking about this like one great character. Where's the others?
Yeah, where are the others? Where are the others? Well, just we were talking about Emily Blunt from Edge of Tomorrow.
Yeah.
But again, we should have a hard time remembering all of them.
Yeah.
Not trying to come up with some that stand alongside Ripley.
Exactly. And Aliens is so much fun to watch. I watched it on the plane a few weeks ago and had a great time rewatching it. I was just like engrossed in it the entire time. It changed the action genre.
Definitely did.
And definitely Sigourney's character changed the action genre.
It came out in 1986, but it could have come out today. And looking exactly like it does, because the special effects are practical. There's no CGI.
They look great.
But it is just a perfect movie. It holds up so well. Nothing about Aliens is dated.
Yes.
And the New York Times
Sir Ridley Scott
called
says
it.
That's true.
Yeah. The New York Times said it's a flaming, crashing, flashing, blow 'em up show that keeps you popping from your seat. Time magazine said a sequel that exceeds its predecessor while giving Sigourney Weaver new emotional dimensions to explore.
Joshua Price on YouTube says, we were debating which one they would choose, and they just chose both. And Tyler Myers says, Alien is the Citizen Kane of sci-fi horror films, and Aliens is the Citizen Kane of sci-fi action films.
Can't let that go.
Can't let that go.
Can't let that go.
Now, Rachel Cushing,
Yay,
who we
Rachel.
love, and I got to hang out with her the other night, and she sent her love.
Yay.
We spoke about how great the Profiles community is, and how
it is.
now, you get to talk to people from all over the world. Just before on YouTube, actually, I was seeing how everyone was saying where they were from around the world. We got people watching, from Leeds. We got people watching from Adelaide. People watching from New Zealand.
Nice.
Plus all around the States. I mean, that makes me so happy. But Rachel says, Ripley is simply iconic as the woman we all hoped we would be in her situation. If we ever find ourselves fighting grotesque aliens on a foreign planet. Ultimately, it boils down to watching a character, man or woman, who does the heroic thing despite being scared or having the odds stacked against them. Sigourney Weaver shows Ripley's fear but then conquers it in order to do what needs to be done, and then she literally kicks ass in a way that makes me stand up and cheer every time. She kicks ass physically, mentally, and emotionally, and is the standard by which I compare all female roles in movies. So let's keep this trend going, Hollywood, because we all deserve these types of heroines.
# girls in film.
Girls in film.
Woohoo!
Woo.
Well, we could give Rachel Cushing the last word, but I think we should give the last word to our guest of honor herself.
Maybe the last person to speak on Profiles should be Sigourney Weaver. Sigourney Weaver.
I mean, you're going to have Ivan Reitman, you're going to have James Cameron, and you're going to have Sigourney Weaver.
Woo!
All of them called in the Profiles. This is definitely a very, very, very special episode of Profiles. Let's hear this amazing interview with Sigourney right now.
Roll it.
And joining us right now is our guest of honor. We are so happy and proud and excited to be joined by our profile, Sigourney Weaver. Thank you so much for calling in and joining us on your show.
Well, it's my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
It's such a thrill to get to talk to you. We're both huge fans of your work. Do you remember the first time that you caught the acting bug? What age?
Well, I think I was pretty young. I think I was a horrible little ham when I was little. And I can just remember, some disgraceful performances in school productions where I, really was, I had a wonderful time. But I think I really, I was much more of a ham then, for instance, than I am now. Now I try to be, less is more. But at the time when I was little, I think I played the Cheshire Cat, like Simon Doonan, and I used to just go for it. And I thought it was so funny that the other kids were retiring. And then I think once I got to be older, I actually wanted to be a journalist, and I studied, literature at school, and I sort of kept doing drama on the side. And frankly, I'm as surprised as anyone that I kind of backed my way into this career, because I always enjoyed it so much. I didn't really want to make a profession out of it. I know that's strange logic. But in the end, I kept working with friends and things like that, and one thing led to another, and I finally thought, well, I guess I'm making a living, so I think I can say I want to be an actor.
Well, we're glad you backed into this, because just so early on in your big screen career, within a couple of years of making your debut, you scored the role of a lifetime, one that has such an impact as Ripley in 1979's Alien. So the first question really is, how did you come to be cast as Ripley? And Ridley Scott, his one of his first movies too. What was it like working with him?
Oh yes. Well, I was very lucky. Really, Alien is my first film. I can't really understand how I got it, but I wasn't very interested in film at that point. I was working a lot in the theater and frankly doing a lot of comedy, and I think I was on a short list of New York actors for Ridley to see, and I ended up going to the wrong place for the interview. I was wearing these sort of hooker boots over blue jeans, but I must have been about 8 feet tall, honestly. And anyway, we had this wonderful meeting, and he showed me all these pictures of the Giger drawings of the alien, and I realized I'd never seen a movie that looked anything like this, and I'd never met anyone like Ridley who was so passionate about what he was going to do. And again, I think my lack of, my lack of interest in the movies was a big asset to me, because I didn't seem desperate at all. I was just like, this is interesting, and so I ended up being screen tested for it. I think I was the only one they screen tested, and I just feel very fortunate that Ridley decided it should be me.
Wow.
Yeah, such a great character. And then you had another great character with Dana Barrett from Ghostbusters. What was it like working with Ivan Reitman and Bill Murray? We were just talking to Ivan, and he said that you and Bill had such a great connection on screen.
Well, I think we did. He's such a lovely guy, Bill. And from the moment we met, we had so much fun. And I loved the part. I think I tried to push the part more so that I could be really possessed. In fact, I was a bit disappointed that Ivan was going to get a special effect dog to be the dog, because I thought I could do that, I was used to off Broadway where there's no money for anything, so actors had to do it all,
Well, when we were talking to Ivan Reitman, he told us something we didn't really know, which is that you had such a huge comic background while you were studying acting. I mean, the first time we really saw you on the big screen were these serious roles, and a lot of people didn't realize that you had done so much training in comedy.
I know, it's so funny, because after you do a role like Ripley, no one thinks of you for a comedy ever. I had to really prove to Ivan that I could do it, and I think it sort of helped me in his mind that Dana was a sort of serious character who has this hidden zany side. It was a wonderful job. Those guys were just so generous and so brilliant, and it was just the most wonderful, witty, heartfelt script, and I was so proud to be in it.
And Ripley, back to Ripley, you went back to the character. How did James Cameron convince you to play her again? Did he have to do much convincing?
Well, in those days, you didn't really do sequels. so Fox actually wasn't interested, I don't think, in doing a sequel. Jim Cameron wrote that script on spec, and he was actually meeting the producers about another movie, and he said, I've written a script for a sequel to Alien. And so they read it, and so it was such a tremendous story and such an amazing part, with so many different levels in it, and so there was no convincing to be done. I just thought, wow. I mean, it was, these movies they're pretty grueling, but it's all of its underpinnings, what it was about.
Yeah.
It was so moving to me,
Oh, yeah.
and I think that's one of the reasons it holds up well.
Yeah, and I love the new layers to Ripley in Aliens as well. The maternal instinct is fantastic.
Totally. No, he took the original character and I think gave it so much more depth, and as you say, the scenes with Newt, are a whole other Ripley, and so I felt incredibly fortunate both times that I was working with guys who really loved women and loved actresses and felt had daughters, and so they were all for women being as powerful as they are.
I love it.
Well, I have to say, when we were going over the show, Sigourney, we were just marveling at just how much of a trailblazing character Ripley was and still is.
Yeah.
And this was your first Oscar nomination, also the first time that a woman was nominated for a performance in an action film. I mean, did you have any idea, or when did you realize that Ripley was going to be seen as such a trailblazing, game-changing role for women?
I think some of that was happening from the first one, but I think what Jim did building on the to me, an everyman character, only she happens to be a woman. He's such a great writer, and there's something so primal about his movies, and I think that people were very swept up by the story, and it sort of pushed the story really from this sort of genre science fiction into drama, into a bigger canvas. And so I think that I was very fortunate to have the support of the Academy for getting a nomination for a role like that. And I'm sorry it hasn't happened more since, because I think there's some great roles in these movies. They're not just about shooting off a lot of guns. If you're lucky, if you have a good script,
Yeah,
You're
totally.
preaching to the choir here.
Totally agree. You're speaking my language here. And then, of course, you had such another amazing year when you were nominated both for Working Girl and Gorillas in the Mist. How was that whole experience for you that year?
Well, I was doing Ghostbusters 2, so the boys teased me constantly about being a double nominee. And Ivan used to say, "Bring on the double nominee." They were very sweet, and it was a lot of fun. I mean, I was sort of astonished. Actors, we're so lucky when we have a chance to play such two very different roles in such two very different stories, and especially, frankly, the privilege of playing someone as complex as Diane Fossey, which I was quite terrified to do. I'd never played anyone real, and I wasn't able to meet her because she had been murdered at this point. And it seemed like a huge responsibility to me to be able to tell the truth about this woman, who I've always felt was a little more comfortable with animals than she was with people. And every time I spoke to anyone about Diane, any friend, the next person would tell me the exact opposite about her. So it was very difficult, and in the end I felt like the Gorillas sort of taught me everything I needed to know about Diane, because she loved them so much. I think they were her family, and I understood that because they accepted me so simply, and I always felt she was kind of watching over me.
Well,
as I worked on this.
Yeah.
When we do our shows, we always go back and we rewatch all of these movies. Sometimes we're watching movies we haven't seen since they came out, and Gorillas in the Mist honestly was one of them. I saw it back in '88 when it came out. You know, I thought Michael Apted did a wonderful job directing that movie.
Still holds up.
It still holds up so well, and I just couldn't wait to just talk to you about the challenges that you had to do in playing Diane Fossey. I mean, it looked like it was a hard shoot to do, and how much of the gorillas that you worked with were real?
Well, first of all, thank you. I'm glad to hear that you think it holds up, because I haven't seen it for many years either. And I just have to say one thing, which is I still work with the Diane Fossey Gorilla Fund, and I feel quite sure that we have helped Diane's cause and all of our cause, really, in helping protect and conserve the mountain gorillas. There are more mountain gorillas now in the Virunga area than there were, about twice as many than there were when Diane was alive, and it's quite a miracle. And I have to credit the Diane Fossey Gorilla Fund. They've just done an amazing job of working with the Rwandans and making the gorillas their sort of responsibility, and it's just been a wonderful experience working with that organization. So, but I think for the gorillas, I was mostly with her gorillas. The only time that the gorillas are not real is when they're being hunted by poachers. Then we used a couple of people in suits. The rest of the time, the group I'm with is actually Diane's study group 5, which I think it was 25 when I was with them, and now it's 50.
Wow.
And
wow.
Most recently, one of the younger gorillas, Cansby, who was named Cansby because Diane thought it was a girl, turned out to be a male girl, named it Cansby. But he's the silverback, and he's the silverback of a group of 50, which is pretty amazing. But, I was so fortunate. I went up every other day to be with them, and honestly, it was one of the most glorious experiences of my life. If anyone has a chance to go to Rwanda and go out and see the gorillas, it is absolutely, I can't even describe it. It's a transcendental experience, honestly, because they're so like us, but in a way they're kind of better than we are, because they don't make war, and they're so kind of primeval and noble, and you just spend time with them. It's one of the most peaceful things I've ever done. And they have about 97% of the same genes that we have, so they're very close to us, and I always felt it was so fascinating to be with them, and I felt so grateful that, for the most part, I was accepted. There were a couple of days where I had an uneasy time of it, once I was struck down by a charging gorilla and things like that, but none of it sort of got in my way, because I had such an important story to tell.
Yeah.
Well, we are so grateful for you calling in to Profiles. This was such an honor and a privilege, and just hearing you talk about your films, especially Gorillas in the Mist just now, it just gave me the chills, and we can't wait for you to watch the show when it's assembled. We really think you're going to love it. We hope we did right by you and your career.
Yeah, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Well, you guys are so kind. I really appreciate it, and I certainly will look for it. And I'm so glad you love the movies as much as you do.
We definitely do. Have a wonderful evening and a great week.
Thank you.
I will. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Sigourney. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Woohoo! Another high five.
Yeah.
This is how we roll.
This has been an amazing episode.
Amazing episode.
And
again.
Yeah, Andrew Whitby on YouTube sums it up perfectly about Sigourney Weaver. What a lovely, down-to-earth person. Beautiful, intelligent, and humble. Very, very true. And I also want to give a shout out to everyone on YouTube who are now suggesting Profiles Con, where we go and travel to places and meet up with profilers and
we love that
talk
idea.
movies. Maybe we have to do a Profiles Con.
Maybe we have to go to cons like New York Comic Con or San Diego Comic Con
Yes.
or WonderCon and do profiles live on stage. What do you think of that?
I like that. And we were planning a fan meetup in Toronto, but the film festival was so busy.
Yeah.
But we will definitely try and do more meetups. We'd love to meet you guys in person and have you guys meet each other, because it is a really nice community and everyone's really supportive, and I love that.
Yes, very, very supportive. Before we go, Alicia, we're going to take care of business one last time.
Do it.
Okay, let's start with iTunes.
Go.
Go to iTunes. Subscribe to Profiles. Please rate and review us on iTunes.
Yeah.
Even if you're watching the show on YouTube, please go to iTunes and rate and review us. We need these ratings and reviews.
If you want us to come Profiles Con,
yeah, exactly.
you better rate us.
And definitely go to youtube.com/Popcorn Talk Network. Subscribe to the video version of our show. Please share it with your film friends. Have them share it with their film friends so we can go viral. Please make sure you go to our Facebook page, which is Profiles with Malone and Mantz. Like our Facebook page. Join in on the brackets. Let us know what movies you love and why. We do read your comments on the air. You can see that. And again, go to Twitter. Follow us on Twitter at Alicia Malone, at Movie Mantz, at Alicia Malone, at Movie Mantz, at Alicia Malone, at Movie Mantz.
It gets longer every time.
Boy, does it feel great to be back on Profiles. And I just want to say, Leash, thank you for being such a very, very dear friend.
Aw.
And thank you for being such a dear family to me.
Aw,
You are the best.
Family. We're not
Yes.
friends, we're family. And Scott, thanks for being a superhero.
Yes.
Saving your brother's life. It's an
Hashtag
incredible
family.
thing that you did. And I'm so glad that you're back in one piece.
Who needs two
and
kidneys?
looking great. And
Who
this
needs
was a
two
great
kidneys?
episode. So let's
Yes.
quickly recap our Fast Five for Sigourney Weaver.
Coming in at number 5 is Ghostbusters. Number 4, Galaxy Quest. Number 3, Dave. Number 2, Gorillas in the Mist. Number 1, Aliens and Alien.
I close my book. That
That's
means
the
we're
sign.
done.
We are done, and we will be joining you again much, much sooner than you think for another brand new episode of Profiles. Until next time, bye.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, Christian Harloff, and the entire Popcorn Talk Network, we would like to thank you for tuning in. For questions or comments, be sure to visit popcorntalk.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of the Popcorn Talk Network.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of its owners or principals.